The Washington Wizards have one of the most intriguing rosters in the NBA right now for the future. Let me give you a case as to why. For starters, they go and trade for Trae Young. Now, they did not give up hardly anything to grab him. He's on an expiring contract. He has a player option here during the offseason. And a lot of questions are whether or not he'll accept it. I think it's dependent on whether or not he gets a contract extension. If he does, of course, he doesn't even have to accept it. That's just what the contract looks like going forward. But if he does accept it, next season will be kind of a win now one, because later on towards the trade deadline, the Wizards were able to grab Anthony Davis for a few first round picks and AJ Johnson, which in my opinion is an absolute steal. Now, with Young and Davis, of course, you have the injury history for both of them. They have both been riddled with a lower leg or even upper body injuries as well in the case of Davis that have kept him out of countless games throughout his career. But in terms of the assets given up versus what they've received in terms of talent, it is night and day when we're talking about what this Wizards roster looked like just a few weeks ago. With that Anthony Davis trade, you pair AD with Trae Young, at least for maybe next season, with a group of core young players that, quite frankly, have a ceilingless potential. Alex Sarr, Keyshawn George, Trey Johnson, Bub Carrington. These are the big four in terms of the young stars. Sarr averaging a career high 17 points, 8 rebounds, 2 blocks per game, has started to thrive at that center position, which quite frankly for Anthony Davis is something that he probably smiles at and says, I hate playing down low. I want to play the 4. We've heard this complaint before from Anthony Davis and his camp. Secondarily, George, a pretty good ball handler, shot creator, and facilitator, averaging 15, 5, and 5 right now. Kind of plays that hybrid guard where he's not a traditional point guard, but can also get down there and bang a little bit, grab some rebounds, facilitate, and score the basketball. Trey Johnson, 38%, 38.5 really, 38.5% from 3, averaging 12, 2, and 2 as a rookie. In my opinion, this was the best shooter in the draft. He can shoot the lights out of the basketball. Really reminds me a lot of Trey Murphy and what he's turned into down there in New Orleans. And then last but not least, a guy who's been having a little bit of a rough patch here this season for the Wizards, but somebody who I do think can continue to excel and get better. Bub Carrington, averaging 10 and 5 right now. There's also 4 other rookie or younger role players at 22 years of age or younger. So we're talking about 8 guys, 22 years or younger right now, that make up the core of this roster. Not to mention, I'll actually get into this later into the video. Stay tuned for that. The whole entire premise of this Wizards roster and what makes it so interesting is Anthony Davis has 1 year remaining on his contract. The 2026-27 year is the last solid contractual obligation that Davis would have to the Wizards. After that, he has yet another player option, and he's talked to multiple people, specifically David Aldridge, about what it's going to take to stay long-term in Washington. He said he wants to meet with the front office, all of the different guys in there that have facilitated this, the GM. In my opinion, the main facilitator of all of this, Michael Winger, the executive president of, I think that's called Monumental Sports or Monument Sports. They own the Wizards, the Mystics, and a few other organizations up there in the DC area. He previously was the GM of the Clippers. He got Kawhi to come to Los Angeles. He traded for Paul George and constructed one of the best championship caliber rosters in the NBA, barring, of course, all of the injuries that the Clippers have had over the past few years. But let me continue with this AD talk here. Of course, he trades for yet another injury-prone guy, but I digress. I do want to look here at the intrinsic value of this team. It's very young. It's clear that the Wizards are trying to accelerate the timeline. Maybe they're even trying to flip these assets in Young and Davis. I doubt that. I think they're trying to actually contend for an NBA championship over the next maybe 1, probably 2 seasons. we're going to have to see whether or not this Wizards team can actually transform some of the young players into complete developed players. Trey Johnson right now, like I said, can shoot the lights out, but he's going to have to develop to become a very good, if not elite, wing defender. Alex Sarr, great rim protector, needs to work a little bit on the rebounding. Bub Carrington is going to have to improve in terms of his shooting numbers. Same thing with Keyshawn George. These four guys, along with some other young assets that could potentially become good rotational players, how do they advance at an exponential level? That's the questions that I would imagine Anthony Davis is asking this Wizards front office right now, because what he's told David Aldridge and what we kind of all expect from a player that is, in this later stage of his career, he wants to contend for championships. Now, haters and other people could absolutely say, oh, well, this is just a bunch of BS. AD just wants the bag. He's been on the sideline so long. I just don't believe that. When we're talking about these alpha personalities, these super athletes like Davis, who has competed at the Olympics for Team USA for literally over a decade, who has also contended at the highest level for the Lakers. They've won a championship with LeBron, of course. This is a guy who wants to win. AD does not want to, wither away up there in Washington with a bunch of young guys who will probably end up replacing him with no championship to follow a suit on all of this withering, I guess. AD wants to win, or at least be given the chance. So in terms of long-term contract extension, I think this offseason is going to be extremely interesting for the Wizards. If they cannot get, a contract worked out, I think they absolutely start to try to flip AD. In terms of Trae Young, I do not think that they would sign Trae Young to an extension unless they can absolutely convince Anthony Davis to sign one first. And in my opinion, Anthony Davis, Rich Paul, and the Clutch Sports Media Group are going to absolutely be the drivers of where this Wizards teams go next. Now, this is the next thing that I wanted to talk about, and the thing that I have not mentioned yet. This Wizards team has got a chance at a top 4 pick right now. It's a 50-50 shot to get a top 4 pick. To get the number 1 pick, I believe, is a 4 to 5% chance, but still one of the highest in the league. And that could really turn the tide here in the Anthony Davis discussion. You have these magnificent young players, Trae Young, Anthony Davis, and a top 4, in my opinion, generational pick in 2026. All of those things mixed together with around $40 to $50 million in cap space. That number would probably shoot up to around 80 to 90 million if Trae Young does not sign an extension there. This is a roster that has a ton of movement, and I can guarantee you there are tons of players in the NBA, at least at the good level. When I say good, I'm talking about solid starter to rotational players that want to come compete with Anthony Davis in Washington. Now, in my opinion, the Wizards are looking for a secondary superstar, and they're trying to determine whether or not that is or is not Trae Young. Now, once again, Young is a guy who has averaged 22 points and 10 assists the majority of his career. His defense is honestly understated for how bad it is. I'm not trying to get on here and disrespect him. I'm specifically talking statistics, advanced statistics wise. He's one of the worst defenders in the league. His turnover percentage is way too high for a primary facilitator that doesn't have a secondary all-star behind him, which Young has not had the majority of his career. Now he does with Davis. He has to play smarter basketball. I absolutely think he's capable of it, but the second thing he's got to do is shoot the ball better. Over the last couple of years, he's had some pretty poor shooting performances throughout the regular season, especially in the postseason as well. Young has got to get back to that 2020 to 2022 grind there. That was the prime of his career at a very young age. I absolutely think he can get back there to it. So Anthony Davis, Trae Young, the Washington Wizards, and 8 young players already on this roster with a top 4 pick potentially coming as well. Where does this organization go? Are they going to vault from one of the worst teams in the league to NBA Finals contender? Or will they just end up using all these assets to flip and try to continue to get younger? I think that's to be determined. I think they've got an absolute bargain for Davis and Young combined for just a few first-round picks, a handful of seconds, and then, of course, a couple of rotation pieces in A.J. Johnson. They got the Kispert, as what Corey Kispert from the Wizards is gone. C.J. McCollum, who they got in the Jordan Poole trade. You know, these are assets that were completely, quote-unquote, replaceable because you got superstars or ex-superstars in this deal. I'm a big fan of where the Wizards are at right now. They are in a kind of a pivot foot position. They can either pass out of it and trade Anthony Davis and just let Trae Young go, or they could step through and try to get a bucket with a pair of guys who are perennial all-stars, ex-all-NBA guys, and contenders in both of their conferences. So let me know what you think of the Wizards and their positioning right now. Thank you guys all so much for watching. Be sure to hit the like, comment, and subscribe button, and we will see you next time.